This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on India-US defense ties. The participants are Dr. Lakshman Behera, Senior Research Analyst, Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis, and Ajay Banerjee, Journalist.
Today, Indian Defense Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had a very fruitful conversation and discussions with US Secretary of Defense James Mattis. Both the countries have had a long cooperation in defense and strategic partnerships. Dr. Behera, there are three clear takeaways. One is about Afghanistan, one is about Pakistan, and one is about cooperation in maritime initiatives both the countries plan. Specifically, James Mattis spoke about looking forward to increased engagements on maritime objectives and explore new exercises. What does this mean for India?
For a long time now, US is relying on Indian Navy to play a larger role in the Indian Ocean, and that is why there is a lot of cooperation in that area. It is also getting a lot of military assets from the US, including the P-8I maritime reconnaissance aircraft and other assets. So Indian Navy is a big player in the Indian Ocean region, and there is a strategic convergence between the US and India, and there is no disharmony between these two countries. So obviously US is inclining towards India to play a larger role, and that we are seeing in successive statements that are coming from both.
Professor Behera, we will stick to maritime cooperation. Both the countries specifically mentioned to maritime security in the Indian Ocean and broader Asia-Pacific region, and also freedom of navigation and unimpeded lawful commerce. Both the countries have not named obvious country China, or the word South China Sea has been mentioned in the statements. But do you see that this is aimed at China without mentioning its name?
Obviously, China is a common cause of worry to both US and India. So without naming them, I think they have adequately referred to which country they are meaning to. Freedom of navigation is important both for India and US for their increasing trade. And China is playing very aggressive in that area. As everybody knows, China has captured several islands, expanded those islands by artificially putting a lot of mud into it. So this has created a lot of tension and worry in India, US and some other friendly countries, particularly Japan. And I'm not surprised that they have stuck to the freedom of navigation. This was also reflected in India-Japan agreement when both the Prime Minister met recently.
James Mattis is on an important visit, Secretary of Defense, US government. He has also met Prime Minister Narendra Modi and has met the National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval. Professor Behera, we also have a defense technology and trade initiative going on with the Americans. 4 products were allowed by the Americans to be made in DTTI in India. There has been little progress after that. Today, the statement says, we look forward to sharing most advanced defense technologies. How hopeful are you of these defense technologies of the latest kind which America promises?
There have been several items listed in the DTTI projects which are supposed to be executed by both the countries, but unfortunately we have not seen much progress on that. Hopefully going forward we'll see some progress, but as I see, there is some lack of coherence between how India sees it and the US sees it. So we have two different systems, and this is the first time that both the countries are cooperating in defense technology as far as co-production, joint development of military items are concerned. So obviously a lot of barriers are there, and I think both the governments trying very hard to bridge those hurdles, and India has taken certain steps. It has modified its procurement procedures, it has allowed greater FDI into defense sector, and so also the US. US has created a dedicated cell within the Department of Defense, particularly to look after those sensitive projects which can be shared with India. It's a matter of time before we see concrete progress on the ground.
Dr. Behera, we will move on to the most important part which emerged during a question and answer session. Our Defense Minister, Ms. Sitharaman, was asked by a US journalist whether India will put boots on the ground in Afghanistan. Our Defense Minister, Ms. Sitharaman, has categorically said there shall not be boots on the ground in Afghanistan. This is a long-stated policy. Do you think this is in line, or was US expecting some concessions from India and allowing Indian troops to be in Afghanistan?
It has been a long-standing position of India that without UN sanction, India won't send troops. So that is one commitment India cannot violate easily. I know there is a lot of pressure from the US government, particularly after Donald Trump came to power as president. I don't think in the immediate future India would commit putting any troops in Afghanistan. But as far as other support is concerned, providing economic support and for rebuilding Afghanistan, India will be very happy to do it, and India is already doing. India has already committed more than $1 billion worth of investment for development of Afghanistan. And that is a policy I think the government of India is happy with.
As you pointed out, now to a UN sanction, do you mean to say that Indian troops could go under the UN flag but not under a NATO-led or American-led alliance? Is that what you're wanting to say?
Yeah, precisely that. So if there is a UN sanction, so India will be participating under UN flag. Otherwise, it won't put any troops under any other flags.
What is the military reason for us not going to Afghanistan? Militarily, historically, we all know that Afghanistan is considered a graveyard for armies, be it the British Army, the Soviet Army, and the Americans have not had the success which they desired. Do you think that it is one of the reasons, or do we have very good relations with Afghanistan, or what is the strategic reason for it?
No, I think the Indian armed forces are professional forces, so they are not afraid of going to any country if the security situation of the country, of our country demands. It's just a policy that India has formulated for a long time now, and that the policy, there is a continuity in the policy I see the government sticking to.
Sir, what was America's demand, you think, or you know from circles, you people move around in strategic circles. What would America want from India and Afghanistan? India is already making dams, highways, hospitals, schools, and even the Afghanistan parliament. What more does America want from us in there?
I think America wants more economic guard. So America has committed more troops against the wishes of Mr. Donald Trump before he became the president. He has changed his policy. He wants more concession from allies. So he sees India as a prospective ally, and in fact India is an ally as far as Afghanistan is concerned. But there is a convergence of interest US and India as far as Pakistan is concerned. Now US is putting a lot of pressure on Pakistan. So the president probably wants to extricate some more concession from India. So expecting that India will put more investment to support Afghanistan economically. But as far as putting troops or giving more military support, India will be a little hesitant.
Because if I remember correctly, we have already trained around 4,000 Afghan National Army personnel in India, and they are allowed specific seats in our training academies, military training academies. How far does that help us in our outreach to Afghanistan?
That's a very key component because we ultimately want Afghanistan to be stable and their forces taking control over their country. And at present, their own forces, be it police or paramilitary or the armed forces, are not adequately trained because they are quite new. So they have very few countries where they can go and train. And India is a very attractive destination. And we have professional institutes, be it NDA or some other institutes. So we can provide them adequate training, and we have cultural and historical links, and they can relate to our institutions much better than any other institutions. And that is why India has come forward providing massive military training to the Afghan security forces.
Sir, as you pointed out today that America probably wants more economic help from its allies who are there or interested in Afghanistan. India already is part of the Six-Nation Dialogue initiated by Russia. Does the interest of India clash in either of the places, or do we remain where we are, be in that Six-Nation Dialogue with Russia and be also with America in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan is a very complex issue, and a lot of players are actually playing their own games. So interestingly, we see China, Russia and Pakistan, they are to some extent ganging up, and Russia is reinforcing its past glory, trying to reassert what it used to play earlier. So it's not very easy thing that we could sort out very easily. So India has to play it very adroitly in the sense that it has to balance both the US and Russian interests, and India has to use its diplomatic card very carefully. Because we are seeing of late, Pakistan is trying to get close to Russia, which used to be our traditional security partner. So it's a very complex situation, and we have to navigate it very carefully.
Sir, India and America go back a long way. Since 2005, we have a strategic partnership, a cooperation kind of thing working. It was renewed in 2015 when President Obama came to India. We have purchased around $15 billion worth of military equipment from the US. There is a scope of widening this engagement. We also, both the countries have a common problem of terrorism. Today, our Defense Minister, Ms. Sitharaman, was very categorical when she told visiting Defense Secretary of the US, James Mattis, that the people who attacked New York, 9/11, and people who attacked Mumbai find safe havens in Pakistan. Secretary Mattis, she requested him to take up the matter with Pakistan. Do you think this will put additional pressure? Because the US has already taken a new stand against Pakistan. How does this change our scenario? Yeah,
coming first to the defense cooperation, as you rightly said, we have purchased more than $15 billion worth of defense equipment from US, and this all happened after the 2005 nuclear agreement we signed with US. And so this is a tremendous boost to the defense cooperation. And this defense cooperation is also visible in military exercises and in counter-terrorism efforts also. And of late, there is a lot of convergence between these two countries as far as counter-terrorism efforts are concerned, as far as Pakistan is concerned. So the US administration has come out very openly criticizing Pakistan, its role in proliferating terrorism in other regions, using its own soil in formatting terrorism in other countries. So I think US will take a very aggressive stand going forward under the President Trump administration. That is good for India because US is the only country which can put pressure on Pakistan, and that was not happening earlier. So we hope that this pressure remains on Pakistan and Pakistan mends its ways, although it's very difficult to predict as of now because for Pakistan terrorism is a means, strategic card, which it has used successfully over past several decades. US pressure will be quite significant in boosting India's efforts in putting pressure on Pakistan.
Both Ms. Sitharaman and Ms. James Mattis were asked a question by an Indian journalist. Especially James Mattis was asked a question by an Indian journalist at the press conference today in Delhi. He asked whether America will continue to give aid to Pakistan in view of its activities of abetting and aiding terrorism. What should America do in this case? I
think they have substantially reduced or made the aid conditional upon Pakistan's progress on terrorism front. And I believe they have stopped a certain amount of aid also, which is creating a lot of problem in Pakistan. As far as India is concerned, India should request the US that any aid to Pakistan should be linked to its progress or the steps that Pakistan is taking to eliminate terrorism on its soil. So that is the stand I think India should always tell the US allies.
Where do you think India-US agreements go in making newer equipments? Because India wants a new kind of technology. We are talking of planes, we are talking of submarines, we have put certain things in the strategic partnership. America, it was quoted in newspapers that the US-India Business Council wrote a letter to our Ministry of Defense asking certain ambiguities to be cleared about who will hold the technologies in case of transfer of technology to India. It is one of the main hindrances in this making of new high-end technology equipment in India. What do you think can make American stand change in this regard?
Coming to that point, so far all our defense purchases are one-way traffic. So we happily spared the money and got the equipment, but that is actually contradicts Prime Minister Modi's Make in India initiative. So we obviously want our equipment to be produced in India. So as far as US reservation about the technology or the intellectual property will be diluted and somebody will surreptitiously take it out, I think there is some misperception. Whenever there are two companies involved in joint production, there is a memorandum of agreement between the two parties, so which normally they stick to. And if you look at the past, never ever any Indian company tried to violate the contractual agreements. I think there is some misperception within the media, and that I think is not based on pure rational or logic.
Do you think the time has come or bridged that traditional legacy issues of trust? Both the countries had legacy issues of trust with each other, especially since we were seen in the Soviet camp and the Russian camp, despite being non-aligned. You think we still have to cross the threshold of trust, or we are still having that legacy issues of trust?
I think the legacy issues are something is very difficult to overcome overnight. So it will take some time as the progress moves ahead, so probably will be more forthcoming. So there are reasons why India has to be little cautious. So we have seen US still supporting Pakistan as far as military aid and economic aid is concerned. There is no stoppage that, although there is some compulsion on the part of US. But those support from the US has actually strengthened Pakistan and to continue its terrorism efforts. So legacy issues to me are still there, and it will take some more time to get over.
Since you deal with this subject, what could be the key point in which we can overcome these legacy trust issues with the Americans?
Since I work on defense production and technology, as I see, there is a lot of trade, but one-way trade. And there is a lot of talk on sharing technology with India, but not a single technology has been shared which could be produced in Indian land. So going forward, US should allow technologies or its equipment to be manufactured in India, and that will go a long way because that will establish a relationship not only between two countries but also the industrial entities of both the countries. And that will be a tremendous boost to overcome some of the legacy issues because that will actually bind the enterprises, industry over a long period of time.
Dr. Behera, thank you for talking to us. Today's visit by Secretary James Mattis was the first cabinet-level visit to India by an American top official since US President Donald Trump took over in January this year. This also speaks about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's outreach towards the US and our growing balance of relationship between the US and the Russians. Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on India-US defense ties. The participants were Dr. Lakshman Behera, Senior Research Analyst, Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis, and Ajay Banerjee, Journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airsdtalks@gmail.com.